I'm so excited to chat with Lani Dickinson today on the Awaken Feminine podcast. Lani is an MBA holder, former Fortune 175 CEO and nurse, turned business coach, master NLP practitioner, and she's the founder of Thrive on Purpose, where she helps women entrepreneurs launch, grow, or scale their business online. She is relentless in helping women build businesses that allow them to have both time and financial freedom. I love that. To build generational wealth, to make their impact, and never miss a moment that matters along the way. And I know she has so much love and wisdom to share with us. I'm really, really excited. So she's joining me all the way from California in the USA. Welcome to the show, Lani.
Thank you so much for having me. It's super exciting to be here.
Yeah. I know a bit about your story, so I'm just excited to dig in. But before we dive into the conversation, can you please give me your definition of what an awakened feminine is?
You know, when I got the opportunity to be interviewed on your podcast, I thought, I'm going to think about that for a minute. I had to listen to a couple of I had already listened to maybe 4 or 5. I was like, I had to listen to 4 or 5 more because I'd never heard it put that way. And so I put a lot of thought into this. And what I would say is the awakened feminine or the awakened female is not necessarily challenging or fighting, but just not accepting or settling for what's the status quo or what is the cultural norm or what are my inherited beliefs. Often people might not even be aware of that, but becoming aware of what is this ocean I'm swimming in, and do I want to continue to swim this way and be surrounded with these fish? So I think it's like a conscious choice to examine and then choose and then say, okay, I commit to do the work that will allow me to be who I say I want to be, rather than just going along, accepting whatever has been created or handed to or for us. So I feel like that is, we become awakened when we're like, okay, this isn't my stuff and I want to be something different. And then we go do it.
I love that. Such a powerful definition, because I think most of us, as children, we are awake because we're curious and everything else, and we just want to do what we want to do. Then as we grow up and going through society, we get all these thoughts and beliefs and expectations put on us. And then we kind of start falling asleep. And then, as you say, as you awaken to go, hey, what's happening? And really going, oh, wow, I don't need to meet all the expectations, meet all the demands, have that thought, have that belief, and do my own thing. And and not necessarily going, I need to fight for this, but just going out and do it. That is so beautiful. Thank you for that definition.
You're welcome. I'm grateful that the approach you take to your podcast had me go think about that.
Yeah. It's not I guess I can say it is a term I coined, but not really. I just kind of got it through a download. So it's really interesting just getting that perspective from every single woman, because it's just so different. So Lani, let's dive into you. Can you share with us, what made you decide to go from, this high-powered job? You were a CEO at a 175, Fortune 175 company. And I know you were a nurse before. What made you go, I actually just want to go and do my own thing?
Well, it's a long story, which I won't drag your audience completely through, but I had my own personal journey where I was getting feedback that I wasn't being effective early on in my corporate career. Like, I know you use the F word in your podcast. I've seen your stuff. I was literally telling the CEO that I reported to, fuck off, right? And so I was getting this feedback, hey, you can't do that. And which that was coming from the way I grew up, right? So I grew up in a very insecure way. My mom was a street drug dealer. So I had a lot of unsafe things around me. And so that was coming into corporate America. It's not going to work. So I went on my own kind of healing journey. And when I did that, the promotions just came like every 18 months, literally for the next several years, all the way to the top as the CEO. And so when I had that healing journey for myself, I wanted everybody to have that because I had these amazing results on the other side of doing the work. So I went on this journey to be the NLP coach to everyone. First, I was like, I'll teach NLP. And then I was like, but people aren't doing anything with it. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to teach the application of NLP. And I'd have these seminars. I was like, but there's so much more people could do, which led to my online, how to do things online journey, right? But fast forward to the CEO role where I was like, oh my gosh, I have to make a difference. I'm a nurse, so I was committed to healthcare, but I'd been side hustling as a mindset and belief and achievement coach for, I don't know, more than a decade. And when COVID hit, that's when I had my, like you mentioned, I listened to your podcast episode about how it came to you instantly, how you were going to do the podcast, and it was an instant download.
Yeah.
I experienced something that I believe is very similar. It was exactly 2 weeks into COVID. I was 49 that year. And I had marked it on my calendar that I was going to resign on my birthday. 25 years into corporate, I was going to resign and give myself the gift of going and doing my thing. I had already owned a gym. I'd been coaching and that kind of thing, but I was like, I'm going to do the thing I know I'm put here to do. Which I thought was going to be all mindset and belief for senior executives and entrepreneurial women. 2 weeks into COVID, well, when COVID first hit, my husband's a trial attorney. He does family law and criminal law. And he thought his business was going to close. Oh, the phone's not ringing. I'm like, you survived 2008. COVID's not going to, although we didn't know what COVID was, COVID's not going to destroy you. Exactly 2 weeks later, he came home and he said, my business is busier than ever. And I was like, oh, that's great. He said, no, actually, it's horrible. It's all domestic violence and child abuse. The download hit because that was so much like my childhood, right? And suddenly my entire life, like, why did a nurse go get an MBA in marketing and strategy? Everybody asked me that for a decade. I could never give a good explanation. In that moment, it was like, I was put here to make sure women can be a badass in business like I am. Less than 5% of the CEOs on the globe are women. It takes something to go be at the top.
Yeah.
And I was like, instant. You got to help women never have to rely on a corporation, a job, a boss, or someone else to pay the bills or dictate what life's going to look like. And they've got to be financially free, living life on their terms, time freedom, financial freedom. When their kids look up in the stands at the soccer game, their mom or their grandma or their aunt has to be there. And they have to be able to create generational wealth. It's getting harder and harder to be safe on our own terms on this globe, right?
Yeah.
And so if women can be badasses in business and have all of those things and never miss a moment that matters, I will have made sense of my whole first 49 years. All those experiences, they won't be for nothing. And there will be powerful business women who think differently and do it differently. Their kids will be okay. And all the kids around them will be okay. It was instant. This thing that took me 3 minutes to explain to you was literally instant. So that is what got me to decide. Now, I couldn't do it in that moment because I was 1 week in, 2 weeks into COVID, 2 weeks into the quarantine order. And I was a nurse as a hospital CEO. We didn't know what we were up against. So I made the commitment to not leave and stay and lead that team through the beginning of COVID, because what nurse walks away from that as a leader? So that is how I decided, like, this is what I'm going to do. And I've been doing it.
Whew. I've got like full goosebumps going on here. What a story. It's, that instant download. And it's so beautiful to be able to know that's what you're here to do. And I think what COVID really has taught us is, you can't keep doing what you're doing if you're not happy in it, because all this time, we never had time to pause, and COVID really made us pause.
Yeah.
And stop to think what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the hidden gift in COVID, if we could call it that,
Yeah.
is this time to be awakened to what was.
Yes. And, and I've heard so many stories where people start working at home and realizing they can spend more time with their kids. And then it's like, oh, I actually don't want to, be working that 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, or, even longer hours than that. And taking it a step back because financially they can. It was just that in their mind, it's like, I need to hustle, I need to hustle, I need to hustle. Right. And not really thinking about what's important to them. So it's really beautiful. It is a beautiful gift that is given us in that way. Other ways, not so much, but, in that way, it is a very beautiful gift because it's allowed us to pause. And I think everyone, whether, moving forward, needs to remember to just take that pause really and truly. I love how you, made that commitment to stay. A lot of times we can go, okay, that's what I want. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to stay. I've made the decision to leave. And, it just shows how heart-led you are to be able to, to go, okay, I need to not think about what I want at the moment. The world, our community, the community needs me right now to be here to lead. So that's really beautiful. I want to ask you, okay, so now you've left and you're doing your business full time, being a high power CEO, I mean, you have been rocking your role to be able to get there. How does it feel to now be running your own business? Is it basically the same going from CEO, Lani, to now CEO, founder of your own business?
Wow. No, it's not the same. There's some key differences. When you're at the top of a big corporate juggernaut like that, I'm used to having teams of CFOs and MBAs and all these people reporting to me. So I could really this is what we're going to do. And the team would just execute, right? They know everybody has their role. And I could make it okay, which is not common to say, okay, I would say openly, okay, what's the downside of me making this decision, right? And I'd have 8 minds in front of me to really examine, here's from my angle and my expertise, why that might not be so great. Here might be the backlash from that. That might not be so great. When you go out to I started out as a solopreneur with no team, side hustling to get there, right? You're alone. Now, I was alone as a CEO. You're alone at the top. Mm-hmm. But as a solopreneur and a founder, you're really alone. I was running an $850 million company. Now I'm running on track for $2 million company, and it is not exactly the same. So you have to be a little bit more scrappy as an entrepreneur, but the self-development journey that you go on to be on your own is no joke. So the thing that kept me in corporate so long, take out COVID, the thing that kept me there so long was I grew up completely insecure about housing and my personal physical safety. So I've been gripped with a security plan. In fact, that's why I climbed in corporate, not for I'm going to be the CEO, but I wanted to make the money to create the safe life. Mm-hmm. So I stayed way too long because of the false safety, because I was laid off once as a regional. They laid off all the regional people across the entire company on a phone call on a Friday morning. That's not really security. I was 20 years in at that point. And then they called me the next day and said, we didn't mean you. We have a job for you. I was like, yeah, no, thanks. So I stayed gone for a while. But let me tell you, all the way up until the very last day, I gave my 30 days notice. I was in a for-profit, publicly traded company. So I fully expected that they would say, thank you, goodbye. They didn't. I worked the full 30-day notice, afraid the whole time, taking action and doing it afraid, committed. I have to go bring this thing to life in a big way, not a small way. And so what I noticed is the day after I left, I had the noticeable absence of fear. It was the biggest lesson in my life that the fear is really not all that real. It was the thing holding me back and keeping me there. And then once I was out, it's like, let's go make this thing happen. I wasn't like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, there's no paycheck, right? It was like, let's go make this thing happen. Let's go make impact. Let's do the thing we've been practicing doing for a decade as a side hustler. So it's different in that way. I don't deal with, there's nobody else's objectives. It's like, what is my vision? I have to spend time like visualizing, what is it I really want to be? Who do I say I want to be? What do I want this company to achieve? So that process is much more internal, bringing my heart out. Whereas in a corporation, you've got other people's agendas and a whole team of people who have ideas and all of that. But yeah, the alone is kind of a new level of alone. And I have team now. I've hired sales team. I've hired my first full-time employee. I've got team now. But yeah, that was, it's like, oh, wow, I'm alone in a different way. And the people I'm saying, here's my vision, here's what I want to do. They're not MBAs with 27 years experience. They're not lifetime CFOs, so that's made me have to grow even more as a leader. To get to CEO, you have to grow as a leader, but having to really develop the patience to be super detail oriented so I can show and lead other people to do those details.
Yeah.
I am a visionary entrepreneur and I was a visionary CEO. So getting down into that detail is like, well, this is my opportunity. I'm learning to love detail.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get it with the entrepreneurial like growth, because it's that you need to get down to every single little detail to show your new staff what to do, because I've had to do that recently as well. And you're like, oh, okay, there's actually so much when you're alone in it at the beginning, you kind of just do it, like not really thinking. And then when you actually have to show someone, you're like, oh, right, I need to like really bring it right down to show them. And I love, thank you for sharing the difference for you. And I love that, as a leader, I think, I've worked in places where the CEO kind of just does a CEO thing where they decide without really consulting, So I love that you were saying that you had all these people in front of you and you asked, okay, what's your expertise? What's your expertise like? And tell me what you think, to then make that decision. Because a lot of times when you are, CEOs, because they're in that power position, it can be quite, you can bring the ego out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, from what I gather and just talking to you, you're very heart-led, probably maybe because of, your childhood circumstances. Do you mind talking a little bit about what it was like to live in a home, or be in a situation where you can't control it, you don't feel safe? And what was that moment when you went, you know what, I'm going to create my own security? Because I know just from what I see in society, when you grow up in those environments, you either completely break away and do you end up being like powerful CEOs like yourself, or you continue that trend. So what was that defining moment that made you go, I'm not going to be like this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's one that I think I share actually in my free challenges. I share about this a lot. I talk about what's in the way of the millionaires mindset. And this is where I share pieces of that. But I remember very clearly, I even know what I was wearing when I was like, I'm not living this way. When I can make my own money, I'm not living this way. This is nuts. These people are crazy. I was 5 years old.
Wow.
And I was like, I was hiding when there were people in the house because bad things did happen to me along the way. I'm an incredible introvert. I read, chew through books. That is what saved me, because I would just grab my books and go hide and not have to see it. And you'd still hear what was going on. Right. Mm. But when I was 5, I knew I'm not living like this. I'm going to live like grandma, because when the bills couldn't get paid, we would go back to grandma's house, and I would often stay there a lot longer. Mm. So my grandma was wealthy and had a very secure, stable life, 3 meals a day, watched the evening news. She was very boring.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, it's safe.
Yeah.
Like we had food to eat while we were there. I always got new clothes. Those kinds of things, right? So I was like, I'm going to live like grandma lives, because that's not scary. We have a car that works. We don't have to run away from anyone. There's no fighting. There's nobody coming after me. And so 5 was the first time. And of course, 5 is a little too young to do it on your own. My life stabilized for a while because my stepdad was in the military, and we moved to Japan for a while. So we lived in Okinawa from 2nd to 6th grade. And I do credit this with really being a stable part of my life. I went to military Department of Defense schools. There were no drugs. Nobody was drinking, because in Japan, you can't do that. Mm. It's not tolerated, right? And so it was straight and narrow. We ate dinner at the table. We had a puppy, all those things. And then we came back stateside and it all started up again. So, and I recognized that. I was like, oh God, here we go. I could see the signs, right? Mm. Oh God, here we go again. She's doing this, he's doing that. So they ended up divorced very quickly. But when I was 15, I'll just say, my mom's boyfriend was looking at me and actually touched me. And I was like, fuck this. Mm-hmm. I am 15. I can get a work permit. I do not have to live this way anymore. And I was out.
Wow.
I was out. So this personality trait that I have, like I can leave this thing behind and recreate right now, has been ingrained with me for a long time. But I remember the moment I was 15, I was like, Mom, this is just what happened. And she was like, well, he doesn't understand what I was like, peace out. I'm gone. So those are 3 very distinct moments where I was like, I have to do better and different, because this is no way to live. Mm-hmm. So I've never tried a street drug. When I was 8, I put cocaine on my tip of my tongue. My whole face went numb because it was out, like piles of it on the table at home. At one point, my mom had a cop living with her to protect the pickup and the drop and the run and all that kind of stuff. Wow. So, this was a serious drug situation. This wasn't like minor. So that episode stayed with me forever. My whole face just went numb. And I was like, why would anybody do this? So to this day, I'm going to be 51 in a few weeks. I have not tried any of those kinds of drugs. I even stay away from too much Excedrin for a migraine, right? Yeah. I'm like, no, not going to do it, because I saw what that created for the people who were gripped with that.
Wow. And, a child should not have to go through that kind of trauma. But the gift is that you are Lani now. Yeah. And look at where you are. So but wow, that's, it's terrifying to even think that there, there's not just you, there's many, many children going through that kind of life.
Well, I will tell you where I realized how pervasive that situation is. I walked around angry until my mid-20s, 27, 28, 30. Like rage anger. Mm. I was mad. I hated my mom. I actually don't hate my mom now, right? Hated my mom. Couldn't believe, like, how could somebody let this happen and all that stuff, right? Which, is a reasonable response. Well, then I went on my personal development journey because I saw that this was just taking over other areas of my life. And actually, my first high ticket coach said to me, you're here because you're afraid you're going to lose your job. You think the people at home experience you much differently, or you change that drastically when you get home? And I was like, oh my God, my relationships, like I love my husband, I love my son. So I had to explore that. I went on my healing journey and all of that. So suddenly I was able to forgive and let go and move on and create the life I really want. then I owned a gym for 5 years. I opened a gym. I had knee surgery and didn't walk for 14 weeks. And so my yoga teacher and my personal trainer, my yoga teacher really had the biggest impact on getting me to walk again. And I got really close to the personal trainer, and his idea was his dream was to own his own gym. And of course he had no money, but I had a lot of money. And I was like, well, I can open a gym and you could be the main trainer and all that kind of stuff, which was, a lot of fun. I owned that for 5 years. So we ran weight loss boot camps. I've struggled with my weight my whole life. COVID did not help that. Struggled with my weight my whole life. And I was like, well, I can do the nutrition adjusting and the macro adjusting and all that. And so we used to run these weight loss boot camps. And anybody who was plateaued, we built it in that they had to have an NLP session with me so we could get at that. This gym only closed the first piece of 2020 with COVID, right? That is where I learned how pervasive sexual abuse of females is. I had no idea how pervasive that was. I was lost in my own experience and had to fish my way out of that. And because of the way my life was, I didn't bring friends home. So I didn't have a lot of friends to share experience with and all of that. I don't know what the numbers are, but just about every single plateaued weight loss person that came to this NLP session with me turned into one-on-one coaching for quite a while. And at the root of all of them was molestation or rape. That's part of where I started to really focus mostly on women. Prior to that, I was coaching mindset, belief, wealthy mind, update, all those things.
Yeah.
Anybody who raised their hand and said, yeah, I'm interested in that. Once I got through, my gym was called Core Transformation. So 5 years with Core, I realized women are so much more vulnerable than I ever really understood, because I was a powerhouse in the corporate world. So I was climbing, I was indestructible there. So I just did not have that perspective, even though it's something that happened to me. I didn't realize it was like endemic, and it really is.
It is. And, you can add me to the list, and it's not something that there's a lot of guilt and shame, because it's something out of our control, but you go, oh, why did it happen to me?
Yeah.
So it's, and it's that unworthiness that unworthiness. It doesn't go away until you actually go and do the work. And it is a lot of forgiveness work. It's not just like, let's do one session of forgiveness and it will go away. It's a lot of work. And which brings me to ask you about forgiveness, because you said, you were angry, up until your late 20s. And you were angry at work, and you tell your bosses to fuck off. And then you started doing, really then going, okay, I need to do my healing work and you mentioned you did forgiveness. What can you share with us? How does forgiveness change your life, or change just your life, or, your client's life, whatever you want to share? Yeah. How does that, and then, you said you started getting promotions and all that. So how does it work?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question, because it's the gift we never understand that we really want. Right? Because in the beginning of the journey for me, it was like, I was saying to my coach, his name was Tim, like, the fuck do you mean I need to do forgiveness? Did you hear what I just said to you? I forgive that. And he said something that like hit me. He's like, well, you're the one drinking the poison, waiting for the other people to die. I was like, all right, I'll try it. How do we do it? So I was in this NLP coaching school for, 3, maybe 4 years, where I would literally bring a list of all my patterns that I wanted to do differently. The cussing. I used to cuss like a sailor. I do cuss now, but I used to cuss like a sailor, like every sentence, every other sentence, right?
Yes.
Just all the things where I was being honest with myself. I'm not being effective and successful and getting where I want to be.
Yeah.
In this place in my personal life, in this pace in my career. I'm not growing my side hustle fast enough. And I have to acknowledge it's my pattern in the way. So I would come to all of these group sessions with all these lists of things I wanted to do better. Whatever NLP exercise they did in the front of the room, I would just pick something off the list and run that pattern through whatever exercise. So I did that for quite a while, and I was getting more effective. And then I decided in the health practitioner NLP session, I'm going to deal with weight loss. I'd been really heavy for a long time. And that was where it became obvious to me that the trauma from my childhood was just sitting there. Because I was being more effective as I worked on my patterns and all of those things. But I remember to this day, I was going through whatever the process was, and it was find kind of like your core question, what are you sorting for? And what is the theme kind of your life? And I was sitting there, and what I heard was, if you're fat and unattractive, you won't be a target. And I was like, where did that come from?
Wow.
I'm like in my late 30s at this point. If you're fat and unattractive, you won't be a target. And I was like, wow. So I think I need to go back and deal with that. Scared to death to deal with it. And here's what's interesting. We're scared to go deal with the stuff, but the bad stuff already happened. That's the thing that boggles my mind. The bad thing already happened, but we're sometimes reluctant to go back and deal with it. It's like the worst of it's over, right? It happened. Let's move on. Now, that's much easier said than done. You know, as you've shared, you've gone through this journey. So when I got to the place where I was like, okay, I think I need to deal with this, but I'm scared. I don't know how. And he's like, I got you. And I think we need to start with forgiveness on some things. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't think so. How do you forgive that? And then he said the thing about poison. And so I had to sit with that. Like, yeah, I guess you're right about that. Okay, I'll try it. So he actually had a download that I could listen to, like a meditation type thing. And so I did the process, and I had to keep doing it. I couldn't even get through the process. I had to keep doing it. And then I would come back to an in-person session. And I can't tell you the moment where the full forgiveness kind of came.
Yeah.
But I just kept trying it because I trusted my coach to believe. I believed in him to say, okay, this is where you need to go. I truly trusted my coach. And I'm like, all right, I'll try it because I trust you. I'm scared. So I did his process with the recordings and stuff. And then I would come back to the live sessions and say, okay, this is what's coming up for me. And I just worked that way until it was better. I had to learn how to love others. I had to learn how to love myself. So I was really good at loving others. I'm a nurse, got really good at loving others. I wasn't so great at loving myself. So it was kind of a journey there. But let me tell you, when I fully did the forgiveness process, the couple of processes that I did, and then I would say, okay, what does this make possible for me? Because if you're going to do this painful work, what is the gift on the other side of that? Right. And that was what motivated me. Okay, well, I won't be binge eating anymore. I won't be hating myself anymore. I won't be afraid to stand up for myself in a way that doesn't look like gang fighting. I can have the life I say I really want if I just do this work. And so I did. And on the other side of that, I was confident. I was able to communicate more effectively, more clearly, so that it didn't come out as F you, which I still have the skill set. I can still do that.
Yeah.
But it was overgeneralized, right? And so the reward on the other side is the freedom. And now I look at it like, truly, if my mom could do it differently, she would have. She didn't have me and say, let me see how bad I can screw her up and how quickly, right? I couldn't see that 30 years ago. I can see that now. She would have done it differently if she could. She's still alive and she's still doing it the way she wants to do it. And we don't have a relationship, but I know in my heart, if she could do it differently, she would.
Yeah.
But she couldn't, and she didn't. And I don't have to give up my life and my freedom for other people's pain.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So powerful, because like your coach said, you're the only person suffering when you don't forgive. The other person doesn't know any better.
They've moved on.
They probably didn't even realize that they've hurt you.
Even if they do,
they don't care.
And there's something that made them the way they are.
Yes.
That was never healed. It's like, well, I don't want to be that. I need to be happy and healthy and contributing and creating a legacy and raising my own kids. And I don't have to be that.
Yeah. And there's this term that I hear. It's like hurt people.
Yes.
And it's so true. So as much as it's hard to forgive, it's when you remember that they're probably doing it because they are in tremendous pain, it helps with the forgiveness a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was certainly a part of it for me. I had to kind of pretend like I understood my mom's journey. I had to kind of say, well, what created her journey?
Yeah.
Why did she need drugs to numb her pain?
Yeah.
And she was adopted and she never really accepted that. I'm not saying she should have. I'm not adopted, so I don't fully understand the journey, but she viewed that as abandonment by her parents. And so she had her own journey. And so she was trying to, be a mom while she was suffering with her own pain.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I can allow her original injury to ruin my life, or I can say, that's her deal. And if she wants help, I know how to get her help. But if she doesn't, I can't let that destroy my life.
Yeah.
And really the first reason I went through this whole thing is I realized I don't want to be that to my son. That was the thing. When my first coach said to me, you think your family's receiving you differently than they are at work? I was like, oh my God, And when I was in high school, I dropped out of high school and went to college because I was pregnant, single mom. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to mess up this unborn baby's life. I got to get my stuff together. And then I get this feedback about how I'm stomping around. I was like, well, do you think it's different at home? I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be my mom to my kids. I have to heal me. Otherwise, I'm creating this on the generational level. And I want to create generational wealth and expansion, not more of this stuff.
Yeah. Yes, it's so
that
powerful.
Makes it work.
Yes, because it's really the generational trauma that you pass down if you don't work on yourself, and the healing. That's one of the big reasons I want to heal, because I want my girls and their kids to not have to experience the trauma passed down from generations, because I can tell you the trauma, from my mom to my grandma, and it's crazy how it gets passed down, and you don't even, until you actually realize that it can be passed down, you don't even know what to work on sometimes.
Exactly. Which is what fits so nicely into your awakened feminine question, because it's like, okay, whatever happened has happened. What do I choose to be on the other side of that?
Yeah.
Do I want to stay gripped with this? Or do I want to go create something on the other side of that?
Yeah. Yes. And creating something on the other side is the best decision that you'll make. If you're sitting on the fence and right now you're going, I'm too scared to jump over the fence. It really, once you've gone to the other side, done the work that needs to be done, it's so liberating, and your life around you changes, and of course you change, but somehow the change in you causes the change outside as well. So it's a beautiful thing.
Ripple effect.
Yeah, because when you heal, others heal as well. It's just how it works. Yeah. I'm looking at the time, but there's a question I really want to ask you. There's actually a lot of questions, but this one, because as you know, I'm a coach about money mindset and trading. So you were talking about you kept at your job because the money made you safe.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about attachment to money and safety? Because we as a society attach so much to money, like so many stories to money. And the more stories we attach to it, the harder actually it is for us to create that wealth, that freedom, because it doesn't end up being freedom when you put all these stories on it.
Yeah. And it's not free or safe to be over there stuck in the corporate situation either. The way I say that is, yes, I was safe because I had, a ton of money guaranteed to come every 2 weeks, right? At what cost? Right? At what cost was I accepting that? And here's the thing, my son's 32 and I had a 25-year career. And when he was 18, he was on the ski slopes. I was in the lodge doing payroll at the director level, doing payroll for 200 and something people. Was I free? Not at all, right? I was really a slave to that every 2-week paycheck. So I was safe in terms of I had a home. It was not going anywhere. But I never examined what I was really giving up in exchange for that. So this money story about having cash to pay the mortgage kept me actually a slave to things that I would never have to do if I would have just chosen to do my own thing much earlier. Now, today, I'm pretty much at choice about what I say yes and say no to, right?
Yeah.
So that story about, oh my gosh, if I stay in this job, I'll be safe, I'll be free, I won't have to make those kinds of choices is wrong. It was wrong for me because I had it equated with, I'm going to go have to do something bad to make the money. Because when I found my money story, is the same coach, first part of the journey, go in and find what's your money story. And I found literally, I'm a very literal person, money is dirty, number one. My mom dealt cocaine, they snorted through money. Money is dirty. So that one made sense. Then it was money is evil. So why would you keep it? So I was making a lot of money, but I wasn't keeping it. My accountant is the first person who identified my money story. She said, you make a ton of money, but you don't keep it. You're giving it all away.
Yeah.
And then third was, if you're making a lot of money, you must be making a deal with the devil. Those were what my money beliefs were way back when they were unexamined. And so the money story that was running my decision to stay in corporate at almost any cost and really limit myself in many ways was really about money's evil. If you're going to make it, you probably are making a deal with the devil if you're going to make a lot of money. So if I left corporate and had to figure out a way to make money, the only frame of reference I had for that was the 5-year-old in my head who was like, well, we're going to have to do bad things to people to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
When I examined that, it was like, would I teach this to my kids? This isn't true. And so I did the work, much like the forgiveness stuff. I did the work to update that. And now that one does come back at every up level.
Yes.
The first time I hit $1 million, it was like, oh my gosh. And then, when I went on from there, like at every up level, I do have to kind of go back and examine. I'm not doing bad things to make the money. I have to kind of talk to the 5-year-old who's a little afraid that we might be doing bad things. But being unaware of the story is really the issue. The story is the story. The stuff that happened is what happened. When we go in and do the work and we give that inner child the skills and the knowledge to say, hey, we're doing good things, then we're free, right? Until the next up level, we've got to have the conversation again. And it's just trying to keep us safe. But yeah, the more attachment we have to a certain way we're going to make the money, a certain amount of money, right? All those things. What I have actually learned is the money just comes. Go out, make offers, change people's lives, figure out what it is they want and they'll pay for, help them with what they'll need, ask them what do they need, help them achieve that. The money just comes and you're doing good to help it happen. And I've studied the book, The Having, made a big difference in my life about feeling that feeling of, having, like the lack kind of disappeared with that book, The Having. So I'm grateful for that. And then You Too Can Be Prosperous was very helpful for me. And then the companion workbook that goes along with that. And the thing that sticks with me when the money's coming in and I'm like, is the money going to come in? And then the money comes in, I say, trust God for the increase. Like it just happens. Like, the money is going to come. Stop freaking out and being lost in the story. So when I'm telling myself the story, I'm running a pattern, I have to stop and say, what's really true here? Well, what's really true is trust God for the increase, go do the good work in the world, and it'll all be taken care of.
Yeah.
And the money just keeps coming.
Yes, because you're doing the good work and you're working on yourself. And I love that. Thank you for talking about that, because I do find that the more stories you attach, it is like this massive block for you to create more. Because like you say, when you're just out doing the work and not putting all the stories in behind money, the money will just come. It just comes flowing in. It doesn't, you don't even need to really try and push and do all those things. So it's beautiful. And I love that you just reminded whoever's listening, and also myself as well, that every time you up level, the stories come back. Because although you do the inner work, it's like, there's so many layers, it's just like who you are. There's so many layers to you. It's not just, CEO Lani. There's, so much that make you who you are. So those money stories or whatever stories about everything in your life, whenever you up level, they just come back. And when you do the inner work, you have the tools to go, all right, you're coming back. What do we need to do to just settle down and keep going?
Yeah, that's the key. You just nailed it. So many people, I've been coaching a long time. So many people will say, I hate it when I do that. It's like, no. You just screamed at a part of you that's trying to keep you safe.
Yeah.
Right. We don't hate the part. We just need to go update it and help it understand and give it the skills to be able to be okay with the journey. When we say we hate it, it's going to dig in, right? We don't hate a part of us. That's not going to make us whole or effective. It's like, this is how I knew I needed help when my stepdad died. I started binge eating. I hadn't been a binge eater for probably 18 or 20 years. I started binge eating again. And months later, it took me months. I was like, this is a sign that I need help with something. I wonder what that is. I wasn't mad. I didn't say, oh my God, I can't believe I'm binge eating. I hate myself. I said, this is a sign I need help with something. I wonder what it is. My husband was like, well, your dad just died. Oh. So I went and got a grief counselor. And then it's like, okay. Something needs to be heard, held, updated, right? There's something internal going on. We're running a pattern. The belief is resurfacing. Deal with that, and then you'll be effective again.
Yeah.
When we run from that is when we're in trouble.
Yeah. And I love before how you said you just had to reassure your 5-year-old that everything's okay, because a lot of times, and when we scream and shout, we're screaming and shout at the 5-year-old in your case. And then you were saying that, and then if you scream, it'll just dig its heels in, because that's like what we do. Yes. So I love that, because it's such a good picture. You can just see it. It's like, nah, I'm not listening to you. I'm just going to dig my heels in and let you suffer some more. Yeah. And the thing is, we're all humans. So yes, we do have those bad days where we might be shouting, but when you have that consciousness to go, all right, I just shouted at myself. All right, let's talk to it now.
Yeah.
because you do have those days. I'm not perfect.
I'm human.
Yeah, so you do have those days where you scream and shout, but then you just need to, once you calm down, you go, okay, right, that was not what I wanted to do.
If I could have a do-over, this is what I would do.
Yes, can we have a chat? Yeah. So, Lani, I'm just mindful of the time, but such a great conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. It's just great. I'd love to have you on again because I think we can dig into so much more about your journey and your knowledge. So before we wrap up, do you mind sharing with us what is setting your soul on fire at the moment?
Well, what is setting my soul on fire at the moment is helping other women do the thing we're talking about. Like, but through a business, because I believe that women who are on their own terms, the kids will be okay. If the mom has money and the mom is on her terms and the mom is doing work she wants to do and she believes in, she's going to be where the kid needs her to be. She's going to do the right thing for her children and the village, right? Yeah. And so I am on fire to help women build and scale their businesses to a place where, and I'm not a man hater at all, but build and scale their business to a place they don't need anybody, right? They are on their terms. And I believe women will do the right thing for their families and the village around them. So I'm on fire to help them build those businesses, not just a little bit. Let's go all the way so that you have everything you want. I'm on fire. Like I can't even, I live, eat, and breathe this stuff.
Yeah, I can feel it through the screen. I love it. And awesome. It's so important. I love how you said you're not a man hater. I've had this conversation with my husband before where I said, I don't need you. I want you, but I don't need you. He was a bit offended, but that's the truth. Like I'm more than capable to look after myself if anything should happen, touch wood. But it's, I want to be with my husband, but I don't need to. There's a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And my husband says that's a great place to be. He knows every day. And my husband's Mexican. So that's a people group, incredibly loving, but men have their roles and women have their roles. And I don't fill any of those roles, right? So 30 years later, he's like, it's great to know we wake up in the same house every day because you want me, not because you need me. And he says it's incredibly freeing for him.
It is, because there's not this reliance that a lot of men feel they need to be the breadwinner. They need to provide for the family.
Be the boss.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that. There's no bosses in our house.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lani. If people want to work with you and find out more about you, where can they go?
Well, the easiest place probably is they can email me, Lani at LaniDickinson.com, and my name is Lani. So that's probably the easiest place. I have a free challenge that people can join, which is www.highticketclientattractionbootcamp.com. And I'm very active in that group. That's probably the place I'm most active. I'm there every week and answering questions and comments and all of that. It's probably the best place, but send me an email, follow me on social, or, join my challenge because I'm very active in that group.
Perfect. I'll have all your details in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Thank you once again. I've just loved our conversation.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you. I feel like we've just been hanging out. So hopefully it's serving your audience well and we can get together again.
Yes, I love that. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too.